The moment Elias Gray heard the gunshot echo across Redthorn Valley, he knew someone wasn't supposed to survive it. The sharp crack ricocheted between the canyon walls, scattering a flock of crows that rose like black smoke into the deep blue sky. Elias reined in his Mustang at the top of the ridge, the wind carrying the faint smell of burnt powder. It wasn't the kind of shot a hunter made. It wasn't meant for a deer. It was the kind fired when a man wanted something dead fast. Elias scanned the valley below, an endless sweep of red stone mesas and twisted sagebrush that shimmered beneath the punishing noon sun. Nothing moved. No horses, no riders. Not even the dust plumes that usually betrayed a fast escape. Someone's hiding, Elias muttered. His Mustang snorted, restless. Sensing the tension that clung to the air like heat off iron, most folks would have turned their horse the other direction, back toward town. Or hell, back toward anywhere civilized. But Elias was not most folks. Something inside him always leaned toward trouble instead of away from it. Maybe it was guilt he'd never shaken. Maybe it was the old scars on his back he tried to ignore. Maybe it was because saving people made him feel like he mattered in a world where he'd long convinced himself he didn't. Whatever the reason, he nudged his Mustang forward. As he descended into Redthorn Valley, the canyon swallowed the sun, trading heat for cool shadows. A narrow path twisted between towering red rocks. Elias kept his revolver loose in his grip. Ravens croaked overhead, unsettled. He didn't hear the groan at first. It was faint, swallowed by the wind. The second time, he froze. Someone was down there. Elias swung off his horse, landing quietly. His boots scraped sandstone as he stepped into the deeper cut of the ravine. There, half hidden behind a cluster of boulders, was a shape crumpled in the dirt. A person. A woman. At first glance, Elias thought she might have already crossed into the next world. Her dark braids lay fanned out around her like a halo of ink. Her skin, rich and sun-bronzed, had gone pale beneath the blood soaking her shoulder. But when he moved closer, her eyes snapped open. Wild, sharp, untrusting, an Apache woman. She tried to push herself up, but pain ripped across her face. Elias knelt slowly, both hands visible. "I'm not here to hurt you," he murmured. Her eyes narrowed. "You carry a gun." "Because men out here shoot first," he replied. "I'm not one of them." Her breath shook. She wasn't convinced, but she didn't have the strength to do anything about it. "Let me look at the wound," he said. She hesitated, then managed a faint nod. Elias touched her shoulder gently. She winced but didn't cry out. The bullet had grazed her, tearing flesh but not burying itself inside. A bad wound, but survivable. "You're lucky," he said. Another inch, and her voice was hoarse but strong enough to cut him off. "Who are you?" "Elias Gray," he said simply. "And why?" "Elias Gray." "Are you here?" "Looking for whoever fired that shot." Her lips curved in bitterness. "You found her." Elias looked around, tracks in the dirt, boot prints, signs of a struggle. Someone had chased her, forced her into this ravine, shot her as she ran. Who did this? She swallowed hard. 3 white men. They wanted what I carry. Elias scanned her waist. A small hide pouch hung tied to her belt, half hidden beneath her sash. "What's in it?" "Doesn't matter to you," she whispered. "Only to my people." "Fair enough." "What's your name?" Elias asked. She hesitated, eyes studying him as if deciding whether he deserved the truth. "Nadira," she finally said. "Daughter of Taza, chief of the Eagle Stone people." Elias inhaled sharply. That wasn't just any tribe. That was a powerful one, known for sharp judgment and even sharper arrows. If they found Nadira wounded in the arms of a white man, He'd be dead before he could explain anything. But he didn't walk away. Elias tore a strip of cloth from his shirt and pressed it to her wound. She stiffened, biting down a groan. "Sorry," he murmured. "You're losing too much blood." "You shouldn't." "Help me." "Why not?" "Because if my people find you," she whispered, "they'll think you did this." Elias gave a dry half-smile. "I've been blamed for worse." He lifted her gently to a sitting position so she could breathe easier. Nadira shuddered, from pain, from fear, from the cold creeping into her limbs. Elias could feel her trembling. "You need water," he said. "No, they might hear." "I'll be fast." He stepped toward his saddlebag and froze. Hoofbeats, voices, coming closer. Elias moved without thinking, grabbing Nadira and pulling her behind a boulder just as 3 riders appeared at the canyon opening. "I swear she fell somewhere in here." One man barked. "Well, find her." "Captain wants that treaty and he wants the Indian dead." Nadira's breath caught. Elias's muscles locked. "Treaty?" He glanced at Nadira. Her face tensed, fear mingled with anger. The riders dismounted, boots crunching on gravel. "Check the walls." Her tracks came down this ravine. Another voice spat, "Damn savages." "We'll finish her and be done." Elias's jaw tightened. He whispered, barely audible, "Do they want to kill you just for that pouch?" Nadira nodded weakly. "It is the treaty. Peace with the governor. They want war instead." Elias didn't have time to react. A boot scraped the stone above them. One rider had climbed the boulder they hid behind. Elias pressed Nadira closer, one hand over her mouth gently to keep her quiet. Her heartbeat thudded against his palm. The man peered into the shadows. Elias reached slowly for his revolver. A rock slipped from the rider's boot. It tumbled down the slope, clattering loudly. "Find anything?" One of the others shouted. "Nah, she ain't here," the rider grunted. They argued for another minute, then turned back toward their horses. "We'll circle east." She couldn't have gone far. Hooves thundered away, fading into the valley. Only when silence returned did Elias exhale. Nadira sagged against the stone, eyes fluttering. "You saved me," she whispered. "Don't thank me yet," Elias said quietly. "We're not out of this." He helped her stand, gently, slowly, until she could lean against him. She was light, but her legs shook uncontrollably. "We have to move," Elias said. "They'll return." She hesitated. "My people's camp is a day's walk." "You can't walk 10 steps like this?" Nadira stiffened. "You don't know what I can do." Elias looked at her shoulder, blood still seeping through the cloth. "You're strong," he said, "but you're also human." For a moment, something softened in her eyes, a flicker of trust, rare and fragile. Elias lifted her into his arms. She resisted weakly. "No, you cannot carry me." If they see me, they'll shoot first anyway," he muttered. "Hold on." Nadira's head rested against his chest as he climbed carefully up the ravine. The sun burned down, the rocks radiating heat like a furnace. Sweat rolled down his back. His arms ached. But he didn't stop. He couldn't, not with the knowledge that the pouch Nadira carried could prevent a war. Not with the knowledge that she was fighting to stay conscious in his arms. Not with the haunting feeling that, for the first time in a long time, his life suddenly mattered again. They reached the ridge just as a hawk screeched overhead. Elias paused to adjust his grip on her. Why help me?" Nadira murmured, barely awake. Elias looked out over the burning horizon. "Because years ago," he said quietly, "someone saved me when I didn't deserve it. I guess I've been waiting for my turn to return the favor." Nadira blinked slowly, studying him with a mixture of confusion and gratitude she couldn't quite voice. Elias continued toward the narrow trail leading east, toward safety, toward danger, toward whatever came next. But one thought guided him now. If he failed Nadira, if she died, if the treaty was lost, the entire frontier could bleed. Not on his watch. Not again. The Mustang whinnied softly as Elias approached. He lifted Nadira into the saddle carefully, holding her steady as her head drooped against his chest. "Stay with me," he whispered. "I'm not letting you die." She whispered something, faint, in Apache, and though he didn't understand it, he felt the meaning in her voice. Fear, trust, a plea. He climbed behind her, securing her against him as he gripped the reins. And as Red Thorn Valley stretched before them like a maze of danger and destiny, Elias nudged the Mustang forward. The hunt had begun, but Elias Gray wasn't running. He was fighting, for a stranger, for peace, for something he hadn't dared hope for in years. A reason to keep living. Elias had survived ambushes, starvation, and 2 winters alone in the mountains, but nothing terrified him like watching Nadira slip in and out of consciousness as he rode deeper into enemy territory. The Mustang's hooves clattered over the stony path, every step jarring Nadira's injured shoulder. She leaned heavily into Elias's chest, breath shallow, her braids brushing his forearm with every sway of the saddle. The sun dipped low behind the sandstone cliffs, painting the world in molten gold. "How much farther?" Elias murmured. Nadira didn't answer. She was awake, barely, but her mind drifted like smoke. He could feel the fever rising in her skin. "We'll stop soon," he whispered, even though stopping could get them killed. He kept his eyes trained on the trail, scanning for movement. Those 3 gunmen weren't the type to give up. They knew Nadira had something powerful, something worth spilling blood for. The treaty. Whatever was written on those folded hides could save or destroy the frontier. Elias tightened his grip around her. "Not on my watch," he vowed again. By late afternoon, shadows stretched long across the valley floor. A cluster of cottonwoods appeared ahead, surrounding a small spring trickling between boulders. "We rest," Elias decided. "Just long enough to get that fever down." Nadira stirred as he dismounted with her in his arms. "Put me down," she whispered weakly. "Not until you stop bleeding," he replied. Her lips twitched, a faint attempt at stubbornness, but she didn't fight him. Elias lowered her carefully beneath the biggest cottonwood. Its leaves shimmered like green coins in the breeze. He filled his canteen at the spring, then knelt beside her. "You're burning up," he muttered. She swallowed with difficulty. "It's nothing. My people have endured worse." "Your people aren't here," Elias said gently. "I am. Let me help." Her eyes softened, just slightly. He cleaned the wound with water, washing away dirt and dried blood. Nadira hissed in pain but didn't pull away. Elias pressed his palm lightly against her good shoulder to keep her steady. "This'll hurt," he warned. "I've survived worse," she replied, echoing his own thought. Elias poured whiskey from his flask over the wound. Nadira tensed, jaw clenched tight. Her breathing shook, but she endured it silently. "You're tougher than half the cowhands I've met," Elias said quietly. She blinked slowly. "Compliment?" "Truth." As he rewrapped her shoulder with fresh cloth, Nadira studied him, really studied him, with dark, searching eyes. "You risk much for a woman you found in the dust," she said, voice soft. But beneath it was something deeper, curiosity and gratitude. Elias glanced away, uncomfortable. "I couldn't just leave you," he muttered. "No," she said. "But most would have." He didn't reply, because the truth was he had left people before. People he should have stayed for. People he'd failed. And Nadira didn't need that burden. Not now. Night fell fast in the canyon. Crickets sang. The moon rose pale and distant. Elias built a small fire hidden behind rocks to avoid drawing attention and cooked dried meat and beans in a tin cup. Nadira watched him from her makeshift bed of blankets. "Your hands," she murmured. Elias paused. "What about them?" "They shake." He forced his fingers still. "Old habit." "No," she said. "Fear." Elias almost laughed, but her gaze pinned him. "You fear for me," she added quietly. He swallowed. "Anyone would." "No, Elias Gray. No one fears for a stranger this much." Silence stretched between them. Finally, Elias admitted, "I couldn't save someone once. Someone who mattered. I'm not letting that happen to you." A shadow passed across Nadira's expression, sympathy, but also understanding. "Then we share something," she whispered. "I too failed someone." Before Elias could ask who, a distant sound snapped both of them alert. Hoofbeats. Slow, calculated, not the clumsy rush of startled riders. Elias crushed the fire with his boot. Darkness swallowed them. He grabbed his rifle, tucked Nadira behind the cottonwood, and crouched low. The hoofbeats drew closer. Elias counted 2 riders. Maybe 3. Nadira touched his arm lightly. "Elias? If they find us, do not die for me." "You don't." He shot her a glare she felt even in the dark. "Don't finish that sentence." The riders came into view, silhouettes against the moonlit rocks. Elias's breath caught. Not the gunmen. Warriors. Apache. Their horses moved in near-silent steps. Their bows were drawn, aimed at the shadows, aimed at Elias. Nadira tried to stand. Elias held her back. "No sudden moves," he whispered. Too late. A warrior dismounted with fluid grace, stepping toward them. His eyes caught the moonlight, sharp, assessing, dangerous. "Nadira?" He called softly in Apache. Nadira's breath trembled. Then she answered weakly, "Atza." The warrior froze, recognition flashing across his face. He rushed forward. "Nadira, you live!" Another warrior approached, older, broader, with streaks of gray in his braids. Nadira whispered, "Uncle." Elias felt tension drain from her body. Relief washed her features. But when the older warrior turned his gaze on Elias, everything froze again. "You," he growled. "White man." "Step back." Elias didn't move. "She's wounded." "I'm helping." The warrior raised his spear. "You touched her." Nadira reached weakly for him. "Elias saved me, or I would be dead." Her uncle hesitated, torn between fury and gratitude. But before either emotion settled, a third sound cut through the canyon. Hoofbeats. These ones fast. The gunman. Elias swore under his breath. Atza grabbed Nadira, lifting her protectively. "Uncle, they come." Elias stood. "We have to move." "They want her dead." Nadira's uncle rounded on him. "And why should we trust you?" "Because," Elias snapped, "if I wanted her dead, I would have left her bleeding in the dirt." For a moment, no one moved. Then Nadira spoke. "He tells truth," she said faintly. "He saved my life." Her uncle finally lowered the spear. "Follow," he ordered. Elias didn't argue. The Apache warriors led them into a narrow fissure between towering cliffs, invisible unless you knew where to look. The path twisted deeper, torchlight flickering. They emerged into a hidden canyon, wide, flat, protected by walls of red stone carved by centuries of wind. Fires dotted the ground. Dozens of Apache turned, startled at the sight of Nadira slumped in Atza's arms. A deep voice thundered, "My daughter." Chief Taza strode toward them, tall, imposing, with eyes that seemed carved from obsidian. His expression shattered from fury to anguish when he saw her injury. Nadira whispered, "Father." Taza gathered her gently, his hands trembling. "Who did this?" "White gunmen," Nadira whispered. "They wanted the treaty." Gasps rippled through the tribe. Taza's eyes burned. "Where is the treaty?" Nadira reached for her pouch. "Safe." Relief washed over him, but only for a moment. His gaze shifted to Elias. "You," Taza growled. "Why does my daughter bleed in your arms?" Elias stood tall. "Because I kept her alive." "And why?" Taza demanded, stepping closer until their faces were inches apart. "Why would a white man risk his life for my blood?" Elias didn't back down. "Because your daughter deserves to live. Because she carries something that matters. Because killing her won't just take a life, it'll start a war." The canyon fell silent. Taza's jaw tightened, but his eyes flickered with something Elias hadn't expected: respect. Or, at least, consideration. Then Atza rushed into camp. "Chief," the riders approach. 3 white gunmen. They track her. Taza's fury returned. "Prepare the defenses." He roared. "No enemy enters this canyon." Warriors scattered. Fires burned brighter. Shadows danced wildly across the stone walls. Taza turned back to Elias, glare still sharp. "You will stay," he ordered, "until I decide your fate." Elias nodded once. He didn't know if Taza planned to trust him or hang him at sunrise. But one thing he did know: he wasn't leaving Nadira's side. Not now. Not after everything. Elias knew something was wrong the moment the canyon fell silent, not quiet, but silent, as if every living thing had stepped back in fear of what was coming. The fire crackled low, throwing long shadows across the stone walls, but the familiar, comforting rhythm of nighttime desert life had vanished. No insects. No rustle of wind. No distant coyote. Only the faint drip of water from the cave's roof, and the soft, uneven breathing of Nadira asleep beside him. Elias slid his hand toward the Winchester at his side. This silence wasn't natural. It was the kind men brought with them. He stood slowly, boots whispering against sand, careful not to wake Nadira. She'd been exhausted after their climb into the hidden canyon, shivering, feverish toward evening, the wound reopening during the trek. She'd insisted she was fine, but when she finally drifted into sleep, her face had gone pale beneath her sun-darkened skin. Elias moved toward the mouth of the cave and froze. At the rim of the canyon, silhouetted against the star-scattered sky, stood a man with a rifle slung across his shoulder. A second shape appeared beside him, then a third. "They found us." Elias ducked back inside and knelt beside Nadira. "Nadira," he whispered, touching her shoulder. "Wake. Now?" Her eyes opened instantly, sharp, alert, instinctual warrior reflex. She winced but sat up. "What is it?" "They tracked us. 3 men above us." She tried to rise, but pain tightened her jaw. "We must move. You can barely stand." Her eyes flashed stubborn, fierce, unbending. "Then help me stand." Elias slipped an arm under her, lifting her slowly. She hissed through her teeth as weight hit her injured leg. Before he could say anything, a rock clattered down the canyon wall, and then a voice hard mocking echoed across the darkness. "Evenin', Elias Gray." Nadira stiffened. Elias's pulse thudded. He knew that voice. Harlan Briggs. A bounty hunter. A man Elias once rode with. A man who'd betrayed him during a job gone bad and left him for dead. "Seems you got yourself something valuable down there," Harlan called. "Girl worth a good price. And I'm thinking the son of a bitch protecting her might fetch a bounty too." Nadira's grip tightened on Elias's arm. Elias whispered, "Stay behind me." No. She pushed forward, gaze fixed on the canyon rim like a wolf ready to leap. "They want me. I will not hide." Another voice, deep, cruel, cut through the night. "Cole Maddox, one of the killers from the ridge." "Give her up, Gray," Cole shouted. "Apache girl ain't worth dying for." Nadira lifted her chin, fire in her eyes. "My people's blood stains your hands. You hunt us like animals." "Don't take it personal, sweetheart," Cole laughed. "War pays good." Harlan's voice followed, cold and sure. "Last chance, Elias. Walk out alone, hands up, and maybe we only kill you." Elias swallowed a bitter curse. He whispered to Nadira, "There's a way out of this canyon. A narrow cut in the east wall. Your father's scouts use it. Can you walk it?" She shook her head. "Too steep. And too far. Then we make our own exit." He grabbed his rifle, checked the chamber, and motioned her deeper into the cave toward the back wall where a dark fissure split the stone. Nadira frowned. "That path. It is forbidden. That path is the only one not watched. It leads to the lower ravine," she said, breath quickening. "There are drop-offs. Loose stone. And better odds than the men waiting to kill you." She hesitated, torn between her tribe's old warnings and the threat outside. A rifle shot cracked stone exploded near the cave mouth. Decision made. Nadira nodded tightly. "We go." Elias grabbed their packs, slung her arm over his shoulder, and hurried toward the fissure. Behind them, Harlan Briggs's voice roared, "Gray, I'll give you to the count of 5. Nadira turned once, eyes blazing at the canyon rim, but allowed Elias to guide her into the splitting rock chamber. The crack narrowed sharply, forcing Elias to angle his body sideways. Nadira pressed against him to pass, breath warm against his neck. She trembled once pain but didn't stop. Behind them, 1. Elias shoved forward. 2. Nadira gasped as her injured leg scraped stone. 3. They reached a ledge. Below lay a dark drop into the lower ravine, jagged rock waiting like teeth. 4. Nadira, hold on. Elias set her hand on the ledge and stepped down onto a narrow foothold. Slide when I say 5. Gunfire erupted at the cave mouth. Now. Nadira slid, Elias catching her mid-fall. Dust burst beneath them, but they stayed upright. Shots rang overhead, ricocheting down the fissure. They know where we are, Nadira whispered. Yeah, Elias said, helping her down the next drop. But they can't follow fast. Crack. A bullet shattered rock inches from Nadira's head. Move, Elias barked. They hurried downward, slipping, stumbling, the path barely wide enough for a boot. Dust choked the air, and shadows flickered in the moonlight bleeding through the rocks. But then, a distant sound. A drumbeat, low, slow, rhythmic. Nadira's eyes widened. Elias, that is my people's signal. Friendly? Her breath shivered. It depends which warriors are near. Another drum, closer, then a third. Thunder crawling across the canyon walls. The sound wasn't coming from above. It was coming from below. Elias steadied her as they descended the last sharp cut of stone. They stepped out into the lower ravine and froze. 10 shadowy figures stood in the moonlight, bows drawn, spears gleaming. Apache warriors. At their center, Chief Taza. Nadira inhaled a strangled breath, emotion breaking across her face like sunrise. Father. Taza stepped forward, torchlight reflecting in his sharp-lined features. His expression flickered between fury, relief, and disbelief as he took in his wounded daughter leaning against a white frontiersman. Nadira, he said, voice low and shaking, you live. She reached for him, her father gripping her with trembling hands. Then his gaze snapped to Elias. "You brought her here." "Not a question." "Yes," Elias said quietly. Taza circled him, slowly studying his posture, his boots coated in cave dust, the blood on his shirt from Nadira's wound. "You sheltered her," Taza continued, eyes sharp. "You fought for her." Elias nodded. "And you," Taza's voice tightened, "also brought death upon her trail." Elias tensed. "They were hunting her long before I—" A rifle shot exploded from above. Warriors reacted instantly, bows raised, eyes to the canyon wall. Taza didn't flinch. Instead, he turned to Elias. "You want to protect my daughter? Then stand with us." He gestured sharply. Warriors moved like shadows, splitting into positions, scanning the canyon walls. Nadira grasped her father's arm. "There are 3 of them. One calls himself Harlan. I know the one," Taza said grimly. "He sold weapons to the Blue River Killers. A traitor." Another shot cracked, this time closer. A warrior returned fire, arrow streaking upward. Taza's voice boomed like a storm. "Bring them to the ground." The canyon erupted with shouts. Arrows launched, sparks burst from rifle barrels overhead, and the ravine filled with smoke. Elias pulled Nadira behind a boulder and fired upward, barely missing Harlan's silhouette on the ridge. Nadira clung to the stone, pain twisting her features. "Elias," she whispered, "they will not stop. They want me because—" A thunderous crack split the canyon wall, not gunfire, but stone breaking as 2 men tried to descend the side. Elias fired, hitting one in the shoulder. The man screamed and tumbled. The second, a wiry shape Elias recognized as Cole Maddox, kept coming. Taza stepped forward, spear raised. "Apache land does not belong to men like you." Cole snarled, raising his rifle. An arrow struck him clean through the chest. His body collapsed over the rocks. Silence fell again, except for Harlan's furious shout from above. "Gray, this ain't over." Then the sound of boots running, fading, escaping. Elias lowered his rifle, breathing hard. The Apache warriors lowered their weapons. Taza approached Elias again, face unreadable. "You did not abandon her," he said. "Even when hunted." "She would have died without help," Elias said simply. Taza nodded slowly. "Many men fear our people." "You did not." Nadira reached for Elias's hand, her voice soft but strong. "He did more than not fear us, father. He saved me." Taza looked at their joined hands, then gave a single approving nod. "Come," he said. "You will return with us to our camp. Dawn brings danger and answers." As warriors lifted Nadira gently, Taza faced Elias. "You walk with us now, Gray," he said. "Whatever comes next. You are part of it." The words settled over Elias like a weight and a promise. Above them, the moon slipped behind the clouds, and the canyon, for the first time, felt alive again. But Elias knew the silence earlier meant one thing. The true danger wasn't over. It was gathering. The Apache camp came into view as the first pale streaks of dawn touched the desert horizon, washing the world in soft gold. Smoke rose from early cooking fires, and warriors moved like shadows between the tall junipers and stone huts. Horses snorted and stamped the earth, sensing tension lingering in the air. Elias walked beside Chief Taza and 3 armed warriors, every step measured, aware of the curious eyes watching him, a white man walking unharmed into Apache ground. Behind them, 2 riders carried Nadira carefully in a stretcher made from stretched hide and willow branches. She drifted in and out of consciousness through the night, fever building, wound flaring angry red beneath her bandaged thigh. Elias kept glancing over his shoulder, anxiety tightening his chest each time he saw her head loll or her breath hitch. Nadira was strong enough to fight death itself, but the blood she'd lost was too much. Taza noticed Elias's worry. "Our healer waits," the chief said. "She will not let Nadira's spirit leave this world." Elias nodded, though fear still gnawed at him. The camp parted as they arrived. Warriors, elders, and children emerged, murmuring in awe as their chief's daughter, bleeding, fragile, but alive, was carried through the center of the village. An elderly woman stepped forward, her gray hair braided with raven feathers. She was small, her back slightly bent, but her dark eyes burned with fierce intelligence. She raised a hand. "Taza," she said. "Bring her to the lodge." The warriors carried Nadira toward a low hut draped in thick buffalo hide. Elias instinctively stepped forward to follow, but two warriors crossed spears in front of him, blocking his path. Taza turned. "You have done much," he said, "but this place is sacred. Only the healer may enter." Elias clenched his jaw but nodded, stepping back. Nadira's fingers twitched as if searching for him. But then the flap closed, and she disappeared inside darkness and smoke. Hours crawled. Elias stood alone outside the healer's lodge, dust swirling around him, heart hammering with every muffled sound from inside chants. Rattles, the hiss of herbs thrown into the fire, Nadira's occasional cry. Each sound tore through him. Children whispered, warriors watched, but no one came close. At midday, Taza approached. His face was carved from stone, but his eyes old, knowing held something new, respect. "You wait for her as if she were blood," Taza said quietly. Elias swallowed hard. "I owe her more than I can say. She owes you her life." "Not just life," Elias corrected. "Her chance to go home. Her chance to keep fighting." Taza studied him, arms crossed. "What is Nadira to you, Elias Gray?" The question struck like an arrow, sudden, unwavering, impossible to sidestep. Elias didn't look away. "She matters to me. More than I planned. More than I should admit." Taza's brow tightened. "A bond between our worlds is a thread stretched thin. It snaps easily." "I know," Elias murmured, "but I can't ignore what happened between us." Before Taza could respond, a warrior sprinted across the camp, breathless. "Chief, tracks found. North trail. 3 horses. One with boots dragging." Elias stiffened. "Harlan." Taza nodded grimly. "He fled the canyon wounded. To return with more men, perhaps." Elias's hand instinctively went to his pistol. "No," Taza said. "You stay. Harlan's hunting her. He'll bring hell down on this village. And you would run into death while Nadira lies inside fighting her own battle?" Elias fell silent. Taza placed a strong hand on his shoulder. "The healer says Nadira's spirit walks the boundary between life and death. If she returns, she will call for you. If she does not," his voice lowered, "no rifle will save her." Elias lowered his head. Taza continued, "My warriors will handle Harlan. His trail is fresh. The earth still holds his weight. We will find him." Elias finally nodded, bitter but resigned. The warriors assembled quickly and thundered out of camp, leaving him alone once again with his worry. As the sun dipped toward evening, the healer finally stepped outside. Elias rose instantly. The healer's face was unreadable. He felt cold dread roll through him. "She sleeps," the healer said. "The fever has broken. Her spirit has chosen to stay." Elias exhaled so sharply his knees nearly buckled. "Thank God." The healer raised a wrinkled hand. "But she is weak. She must fight still." Her eyes softened. "She asked for you." Elias didn't wait, he ducked inside the lodge. Smoke hung thick in the dim hut, carrying the scent of sage and warm earth. Nadira lay on a bed of furs, hair damp, skin pale but alive. Her dark eyes lifted slowly, finding him. "Elias!" Her voice was a whisper, but it held more strength than he'd heard in days. He knelt beside her, taking her hand gently. "You scared the life out of me." A faint smile touched her lips. "My father says you have the eyes of a man at war with his own heart." Elias huffed a soft, broken laugh. "I'm at war with a lot of things." Her fingers curled around his. "And do I trouble your heart, Elias Gray?" He didn't look away. "More than any man can survive." Her eyes softened. "Then stay. Until the sun rises again. I'm not going anywhere." But before he could say more, loud calls echoed through the camp. Boots, voices, urgency. The healer's expression darkened. "Warriors return." Elias stood, instinct burning through him. "Stay here," he said softly. He stepped out. 3 Apache warriors approached Taza with grim faces. "Chief," one said, "we found Harlan. Alive." Elias's blood went cold. "He waits in the canyon near Red Butte," the warrior continued. He lit a signal fire. "We believe he sent word to cavalry scouts." Taza's jaw tightened. "He brings them here." The warrior nodded. "He wants the girl. And he wants the white man who hides her." Elias stepped forward. "Then I go. I face him. This is my doing." Taza turned sharply. "You think surrender will stop the soldiers? They see our people as enemies. They will take any excuse to spill blood." "I can reach Harlan before the soldiers arrive," Elias insisted. "He wants me." "Not you. Not Nadira." Taza's gaze hardened. "You saved my daughter. But do not mistake that for permission to throw your life to the wind. This isn't about me." "Then who?" Elias hesitated. Taza's eyes narrowed. "Say her name, Nadira." Silence. Wind moved through the camp like a breath held too long. Finally Taza nodded. "Then we end this, together." Night fell fast. The desert sky burned with stars as Elias, Taza, and 3 warriors rode toward Red Butte. The air smelled of dried weeds, dust, and distant smoke. Coyotes yipped somewhere far off. As they neared the canyon, Elias motioned them to stop. "I go in alone." Taza shook his head. "We stand with you. Harlan will shoot if he sees Apache warriors. He wants a clear path. He won't fire if he sees only me." After a tense moment, Taza nodded. "We will circle the ridge. Wait for your signal." Elias slid from his horse and moved into the canyon on foot. The orange flicker of a small fire glowed ahead. Harlan Briggs sat on a boulder like a wolf waiting for prey dirty, bleeding from the shoulder, face twisted with hate. "Well, damn," Harlan said, spitting blood. Gray actually showed. "Harlan," Elias said evenly, "this ends tonight." "Oh, it will." Harlan pointed his rifle outward. "Cavalry'll be here any minute. I told them Apache kidnapped a settler woman. They'll burn the whole valley looking for a ghost." Elias felt fury boil. "You're lying to start a war." "A war means money," Harlan said with a shrug. "And I reckon a dead Apache girl and a dead traitor like you make fine proof." Elias drew his pistol slowly. "Not happening." "Funny," Harlan grinned. "I was about to say the same." The standoff felt electric to men, shadows dancing around them, hatred thick as smoke. Harlan cocked the rifle. Elias fired first. The shot ripped through Harlan's gun arm. The rifle clattered to the ground. Harlan screamed and lunged with a knife. Elias ducked, twisting, slamming him against the rock. Dust exploded. Harlan fought like a cornered animal, biting, clawing, rage burning in his eyes. "You ruined everything." Harlan spat. "All for a damn Apache girl." Elias slammed a fist into his jaw. "She's worth 10 of you." Harlan drew the knife again. An arrow whistled. It struck Harlan through the chest. He fell, breath rattled, and stopped. Elias looked up. Taza stood on the ridge above, bow in hand. The chief spoke quietly. Some men choose darkness until their last breath. Elias exhaled, shaking off adrenaline. The cavalry. They will see the fire and come, Taza said. But not for war. Behind them, warriors dragged Harlan's body, tossing his weapons aside. Taza stepped forward and pressed a hand to Elias's shoulder. Come, we return home. My daughter waits. Back at camp, Nadira sat upright at the healer's hut entrance, wrapped in a blanket. Her face glowed in the firelight, still weak, still healing, but alive and fierce. Her eyes found Elias instantly. He went to her. She reached for his hand. You came back. He knelt beside her. I always will. Taza approached them, voice strong. This man risked his life to protect you, he told his daughter. He stands as friend to our people. Nadira looked at Elias with a warmth that felt like sunrise breaking the cold horizon. Elias squeezed her hand. You once asked if you troubled my heart, and? She breathed. You do, he said softly. And I don't want it any other way. Her smile trembled with emotion. Then stay, Elias Gray. He nodded, feeling something anchored deep inside him, something he'd never felt in all his wandering years. I will. And the fire burned on, crackling like a promise. The desert night exhaled, and peace, real peace, finally settled over the frontier.